What's going on, guys? So you probably saw the video I just recently did showcasing the B&W tow and stow and a knockoff that's manufactured in China, and it's designed to look and function the same way. We exposed some of the flaws and some of the things that were different, especially the use of thinner gauge material for the actual shank. So that was a big deal. And of course there were some other little things that you had to look closely for to see how the B&W is still a superior product in terms of fit and finish. Now, in front of you, you were looking at 4 hitches. 3 of these hitches are manufactured by a very well-known and reputable company called Bulletproof Hitches. One of them, right here, is a knockoff, and it's designed to look, feel, and function in much the same way as a true Bulletproof product. But when we take a closer look, we're going to expose some things that might actually make this a dangerous hitch to use. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so again, Bulletproof, Bulletproof, Bulletproof. This is part of their extreme duty line. 36,000 pound rated tow capacity, 6,500 pound rated hitch weight capacity. That's no joke, because that is a tremendous amount of weight, especially from a hitch weight capacity. The amount of weight that's vertically pressing down on this hitch is higher than any other conventional hitch I have seen. Now, when we move down to the lightest duty Bulletproof hitch, which is this one down here, this one's rated for 10,000 pounds on the 2 5/16 inch ball, 8,000 pounds on the 2-inch ball. It has a single pin that goes in. This is a solid piece of steel, but the shank itself is actually hollow on the end, and it looks like it's 1/4 inch thick material for the sidewall thickness. Then we have the medium duty hitch, which has a very similar shank on it, but you have the wider channel right here, and this one's rated for 14,000 pounds on the 2 5/16 and 10,000 pounds on the 2-inch ball. And then we have the knockoff. This is a company called Metalware, and the specific one, which is kind of odd actually, because I had actually made a mistake in ordering this one on Amazon. I spent my own money on it. It was about $110, honestly. It wasn't very much. It had some discount codes and things like that. But the hitch that I accidentally ordered was supposed to have the 2-inch ball and the 1 7/8 inch ball. So it was supposed to have the smaller and the smallest of balls. And I was a little worried when it came in, because I was still going to show it, but I was going to let you all know I made a mistake in ordering it. But then when it came in, it actually came in with the 2 5/16 inch ball and the 2-inch ball. So you got to be cautious, because if you are looking for the 2 smaller ball sizes, then you may not actually receive that. Anyways, I'm glad I got the one that I actually intended on getting. Like I said, $109, plus there was like 10 or 20% off. I ended up paying like $87 for this thing. This is rated at a pretty crazy 22,000 pounds on the 2 5/16 inch ball, and on the 2-inch ball, I think we are at, well, it doesn't really even tell you on here. It just says 22,000 pounds and then 2,200 pounds, but it doesn't actually designate which ball has that rating. I'm just going to assume that's going to be for the 2 5/16 inch ball, because I wouldn't put anywhere near that on the 2-inch ball. And honestly, for this specific hitch, because of a design flaw, I would not put anywhere near that weight on this hitch in general. Now, whenever we look at these hitches, they all look very similar. And honestly, being right up in front of them, being able to physically see them and touch them and hold them, they feel very similar, except for a few things that are different. Now, one thing that I want to be clear on is that Bulletproof hitches, at least at the time of this recording and the time that I'm featuring this, all the boxes that these came in said made in China. I'm only saying that because this hitch is also manufactured in China. And that's a big deal to some folks. Some folks could care less. Some folks absolutely will only buy products that are made in America when it comes to this type of product. And I'm definitely one to say that Bulletproof makes a fantastic product. They really do. It is very, very well built. It's a very strong product. And they claim that they've never had a hitch fail, even though every time I post a video about it, people leave comments or they send me emails saying that they've had pins that have bent. I don't believe anybody's actually said they've had anything shear off or completely fail to the point to where it's detached whatever you're towing from the actual vehicle. And I think that's probably, or at least I'm speculating, that's possibly what they're trying to say when they say they haven't had any failures. That said, in front of us, we have a knockoff. Now, whenever we look at these products, they all look, like I said, very similar. The texture, though, is very different. When I feel a Bulletproof hitch, and I've told you guys this in the past, it has a very sandpaper feel to it. And let me demonstrate that. So I'm going to take this little piece of trim that I have. It's just a spare piece of, trim wood that I have, and I'm simply going to rub it on the shank right here. And it is absolutely wearing that down. It is, like I said, it's a very, very sandpaper-like feel. And what's funny is, with me doing that, it actually is making the surface feel smoother. So if I go to one of these hitches, like I said, it has kind of a rough texture to it, but just going over it with this, it's not only sanding the edge down, but it's also making it a little smoother in terms of texture. So I don't know exactly how they powder coat their product or what they use, but it definitely has a very, very aggressive texture to it. And that texture you can definitely feel in every single area of this product, from the hitch head, both of the ball assemblies, as well as the channel and the shank itself. This product, on the other hand, has a very smooth powder coat finish to it. So if I take this, look at that. You can just barely see it rubbing off compared to both of the Bulletproof products. This is a very, very smooth texture compared to the Bulletproof product on either side of it. So again, the finish on here feels like a pretty dang good finish. Now what I'm going to do, and I don't know exactly if this is scientific or not, but I'm going to take a pin that I have and I'm going to strike the ball on both of these just to see what happens. Let's start with the Bulletproof. Okay, so you can see by hitting it, it went straight through the powder-coated finish right there into the raw steel underneath it. Right there. I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Alright, so exactly the same thing happened. See if I can zoom in on it. It actually looks pretty much exactly the same on both of it. Let's do it again. There, and you can see the little line right in the middle again where it hit. So the finishes are pretty much the same. There's a very, very similar finish. You can definitely feel it on the Bulletproof. On here, you can definitely feel it as well. This feels like it might be a little thicker in terms of overall finish, even though it's very similar. It's very similar. There's not a heck of a lot of difference other than the fact that the Bulletproof feels a lot more aggressive than this Meadowwear or whatever it's called. The inner part of the channel, even though it kind of looks the same, the Bulletproof definitely has, again, more of a sandpaper finish to it. Now next, I have a little piece of this 220 grit sandpaper. I'm simply going to scuff it right here, and I'm going to scuff it right here. I'm going to pass over it, and I'll just see which one holds up a little better, the Bulletproof or the Meadowwear. This might not actually cause any problem at all, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so let's get that wiped off. Okay. It did not make it all the way through, but boy, that is a lot smoother now. And also the same here. It's smoother than it was, but it did not get completely through the finish on either one of these with about 5 seconds worth of scrubbing. Okay, so the finishes to me are just about equal. I don't see any big difference, but I actually prefer the Meadowwear finish over the Bulletproof finish because it's just smoother in general. It doesn't feel nearly as aggressive, even though it seems to be roughly the same quality. I can't really see any major differences. Okay, so at the beginning of the video, I told you that this might actually be unsafe to use, and there's a reason for that. So even though it looks the same, and I believe the structure itself is designed probably very similar, if not exactly the same, this is something that's pretty important. One thing, first of all, we look at the pin spacing on this one. Even though this is for a 2-inch shank, you can see it more closely aligns to the 22 or the 36,000 pound rated version of the Bulletproof with the pin spacing. That is basically a pin, space, pin, pin, space, pin. And then on the 14,000 pound, the 2 pins are closer together. This part's smaller. And then, of course, on this one, there's only 1 pin going in. And I have already confirmed that all the accessories are swappable. I can take this Bulletproof hitch head and actually put it on this channel. So all these components are pretty much swappable. I can even move this one over. It'll just be using the 2 closer pins versus the space in between. Now, this is the part I'm talking about. I'm going to grab the hitch ball and I'm going to rock it. And then when we get to this one, I want you to see the difference. So a little bit of movement there. I'd probably say it's maybe 1/8 of an inch of movement. There's not a tremendous amount, but there is a little bit of movement. But from an overall play perspective, that's the only movement you have. Side to side, there's no movement. I mean, there's barely any. If there is, no, there's no movement side to side, just a little rocking movement, but not much. We move to the 14,000 pound, little bit of movement here. There's probably a little less than 1/4 of an inch of movement side to side. Very, very little, very, very little movement. I'll talk about why that's so important in a second. The metalware. So there's probably about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little less, so it's kind of similar to this one, but this is the part you need to focus in on. There's a tremendous amount of side to side movement here. Look at that. It's probably somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch of movement. And that is a lot of movement for a hitch that's supposedly rated to 22,000 pounds worth of tow capacity. We move to this one. Look, you can actually see the tolerances here are much, much, much tighter. So there might be a 1/16 of an inch of movement in between here. Now, the reason why this is so important, and let me do a rocking, this one barely moves. It's probably a 1/16 of an inch of movement as well. So if you look at the ones that move the most, that one easily moves the most. This one comes in second, third, and then this one moves the least amount. So this is important. The reason why is because the way these hitches work and the reason why they have such high towing capacities and payload capacities is because it's relying on the shear force strength of the pins themselves. Basically, the ability for the pin to not bend, deform, or shear off. And when I say shear off, that's versus pulling apart or compressing together. It's basically saying this piece right here is not going to break off. And the shear force, whenever you have a gap like that, is amplified. The pin strength is the same, but the leverage you're now putting on it is going to be tremendously higher whenever you have a gap here at all. So any gap is going to lead to a lot more energy being transferred to the pin in a way that it's not really designed to carry. But I can almost guarantee you, you could potentially experience pin failure or even a shearing, which could occur with this pin because of that gap. That is a huge gap, and the play here is just ridiculous. I don't know why they would even allow something like this to pass quality control. Whenever you look at the Bulletproof products, they are incredibly tight in that channel, and there's not really gonna be any energy applied to any other area except right at the shear point, which is going to give these a huge advantage of overall strength when it comes to towing. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to remove this hitch head assembly. I'm going to put the Bulletproof hitch in this channel, and we're going to see, is this a problem with the manufacturing of the hitch head not being wide enough, or if this is a manufacturing of the channel not being narrow enough, or maybe both. Okay, so I only needed to put 1 pin in to see that it's the channel. So the channel on this one is not tight enough around the sides of the hitch head, and we've now put the Bulletproof head into the channel on the metalware hitch assembly. So this is not a good setup in my opinion. Let's take a look at the hitch head assemblies. So there are quite a bit of differences here between the two. First and foremost, the textured finish, like I said, is completely different. Much smoother finish. I kind of like the finish on this metalware a little bit better. You have a real aggressive finish on here that I've already talked about. When we talk about the mounting location that mounts in the channel, you can see there's more material here on the Bulletproof between the top of the pin and the top of the hitch head assembly versus the metalware. It's significant actually, and that's the reason why this is sitting like this and it's not sitting up like that, because there is more material on the Bulletproof. The edges of the front right here are also cut back, so it's got a nice angular look to it. On the Meadoware, it's pretty much cleanly cut off, and I think they just sand it or kind of clean up the end, so there's nothing crazy going on there. It's more rounded around this portion as well, where it's more of like a straight cut at an angle on the Bulletproof. The ball head assembly is a big one. Look at the two. This is a significantly larger mounting spot for the ball head. Just the overall diameter of that is much, much larger than you're seeing on the Meadoware. This is much smaller, much smaller weld compared to the Bulletproof. The Bulletproof has a massive weld, and it's almost continuous all the way around here as well. But it is a huge weld right there, and you have a relatively small weld here. And this is both for the 2 5/16 inch balls. Aside from that, there aren't a ton of extra differences, except again, here's actually a pretty big one. If you look at the channel on the back, we'll flip the Bulletproof up so you can see it as well. The Bulletproof continues all the way to the back of the hitch head assembly. Look at this one. That is nowhere near the back. So you actually have more strength with this. That is a much better product right here in terms of how they've designed this to carry the weight versus what they've done here with the Meadoware. But yeah, so those are some pretty big differences. Now let's take a look at the shank assembly. Okay, so now we have the drop shanks. They're both the same in terms of adjustability. I believe we have 8-inch drops on these. Again, this is a 2-inch shank, and this is a 2.5-inch shank. They're both solid steel shanks. You have that continuation of that rounded edge right here, where this is a straight cut edge over here, and they also taper the pin mounting holes on the Bulletproof, whereas on here they are tapered, but just barely tapered, and definitely nowhere near as much as the Bulletproof. The welds, again, are significantly larger on the Bulletproof. I mean, you can just see how meaty these welds are. Going all the way down, when we look at them on here, much smaller welds. I'm going to say they're probably half the size in terms of the welds. Now, they both have a 1/2-inch gusset on the back, but here's another angle where you can see the welds. Just look at how massive the welds are on the Bulletproof compared to the Meadoware. It is a big difference, and I can clearly see it right here. Plus, all your welds around here are also larger than the welds that are on the Meadoware. That doesn't necessarily mean that this is a poorly engineered product or it's not built as strong as they're claiming. I think most of these hitches are actually overbuilt. But my big problem with this product right now is how well the hitch head assembly fits into the channel, and the channel should have been made or formed a little bit narrower to relieve the tolerance that's currently there, which is going to put more strain on the pins. Now, talking about pins. So the pins that actually come with the Meadoware, they're stainless steel pins. They are really nice. I'd have to say the pins look nicer and have a nicer feel to them versus the Bulletproof pins. Doesn't mean it's a better pin, it just means it looks nicer and has a better feel to it. They both fit very well into either of the products, and there's really not any play or minimal play between the two. They're about the same. So both of the pins are nice on both products, but I just actually like the Meadoware pins a little bit better in terms of overall look. They taper the pins on the Bulletproof product a little bit more, which might make it a little easier doing a rapid swap if you need to flip the ball over and need to move it around. That might come in a little bit more handy. The pins are definitely a little longer on the Bulletproof product versus the Meadoware, but there's still plenty of material passing through both of them that you shouldn't have any type of an issue there. With the pins and the clips, we're at 45 pounds 4 ounces for the Bulletproof. And with the Meadoware, we are at 37 pounds 10 ounces. So yeah, there's quite a bit of difference right there. And that again is mainly due to the fact that that has the larger shank and more material at the back of the hitch head assembly. Now, before we wrap this video up, I want to talk about the typical comments people leave in reviews on Amazon, eTrailer, just about anywhere else they buy hitches. They say the hitch is too loose in the back of the vehicle, there's too much play. And 9 out of 10 times, or probably 99 out of 100 times, regardless of the hitch you buy, it's usually the receiver on the vehicle that's at fault. It's not the actual hitch manufacturer itself. So if we measure like the back of the Meadoware, it is literally exactly at 2 inches. If we measure the back of the Bulletproof, same thing. It is like exactly at 2 inches. It's pretty easy to cut this stuff to 2 inches. The receivers on the back of the vehicles, though, have to be slightly larger than 2 inches to be able to accept the shank while at the same time not binding, especially if rust starts to form. So they'll usually make it a little bit wider or larger than it needs to be, just so you have that play in the event rust starts forming and you need to be able to remove it. Making it too tight in the back of the vehicle can make it very difficult to remove if you get any rust on the shank itself. Anyways, just wanted to point that out. Okay, so to wrap this video up, what I'm not saying is that this is a terrible product. I'm not making that claim at all. I'm not saying that this isn't going to do what almost everybody who gets this hitch wants it to do, and that's to tow a trailer, even up to a pretty ridiculous amount of weight. I'm not making any claims about the performance of this product. I do see a couple flaws. The main flaw I do see is the fact that, again, that spacing and the tolerances here are definitely pretty dang poor compared to Bulletproof. I would trust Bulletproof up to what the Hitch is actually claiming. I wouldn't trust this to anywhere near what the Hitch claims. That's my own personal opinion. Again, basically because not only did they copy a design, but they copied it with poor tolerances. And that's a big deal. Again, even when we look at the lighter duty, 14,000 pound, this is the medium duty hitch, you can see the base of the ball is significantly larger on the Bulletproof. The weld going around it is significantly larger because this is a much more robust setup that they have going on here. All of your welds are larger, and even how they've attached things are just executed on better. I like the finish, but the finish isn't what sells me on a product. It's what its capabilities are. That said, this hitch will probably, again, do what most people want it to do. But the chances of this one probably failing under normal use, in my opinion, are greater than this hitch. The fact that I would trust this hitch to its rated capacity is a big deal to me versus this one, which I would not trust to its rated capacity. And another reason is that Bulletproof claims that they've tested their hitches to J684 testing standards, which is a big deal. It means that they've put it through the tests to be able to meet the claims that they say. This one, I see no such claim. Now, again, it doesn't mean that this hitch is going to fail on you, but you should understand that when you buy a knockoff, you're doing it to save money. But you also need to possibly understand that the manufacturer just might be trying to copy the look of a product without actually designing it and engineering it the same way. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you've enjoyed this video. My channel sponsor, eTrailer, carries this product. I know I don't always brag about every aspect of any hitch that I review. I think that's just part of being an honest reviewer. These are all really expensive products, and if you're going to spend your money on it, you should know what you're getting for that money. Again, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, drop a comment below, and we'll talk to you again very soon.